Hello, hello, hello everybody, and welcome to a playthrough of completely different game, or at least a partial playthrough, or partial review, or me just having some fun with SpaceChem. So, first things first, a little bit of background history because everybody loves backstory, and ooh, weird. Everybody loves backstory, right? So here's a little bit of backstory about SpaceChem, and while we're at it, I'll make sure I have a new profile going. Before I was in medical school, I was in college, which I suppose isn't that unusual. And in college, I studied computer science and programming. I've had an interest in programming since I was freaking 10, so, you know, there's that. While this is not a programming game at all, it actually bears no outward resemblance to programming whatsoever. As a programmer, I felt it scratch an itch which has been untapped for a long time. This game is one of those it's a puzzle game, but it's one of those puzzle games that makes you think in a completely different way than you're used to thinking. And that is a rare and precious, precious trait, in my humble opinion. The last game I played that did that to me was Portal, and I don't think I have to tell this audience just how great Portal is, because, well, if you don't know that, you're probably still living under a rock in your mother's basement. Of course, if you know that, you might still be living under a rock in your mother's basement, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so, SpaceChem. The game starts off with some pretty straightforward tutorial-like levels, so I'm gonna go ahead and just play those through, with explanation for what I'm doing, while simultaneously skipping through the parts where they're explaining it, because to hell with them. What is SpaceChem and why is it awesome? Oh, this is the tutorial level where they literally make you do stuff. Well, it might be good to remind myself how the controls work. The concept of SpaceChem is simple, sort of. You are a reactor designer. You're building a nuclear reactor of sorts. And your goal on each level is to come up with a set of ins and outs to make the reactor produce, well, what it needs to do. For example, this reactor is taking in oxygen, and you'll see when I cover it here, it gives me information down here. This reactor is taking in elemental oxygen with a double bond, and spitting out elemental oxygen with a double bond. So how do I tell the machine what to do? And that is done by a series of what are called Waldos. First you have the start instruction, so it's going to start on the start instruction, and proceed along the code line. Okay, so what they're suggesting is that I place the in alpha instruction next. What would that do? When I cross the in alpha instruction, a molecule of elemental oxygen will appear on these two squares of this 4x4 grid, so here. Let's go ahead and test it. Yep, that's exactly what happened. Good, so far so good. Next instruction, grab drop. It does exactly what it says it does. If you cross it, you will grab the molecule, and if you cross it while the molecule is grabbed, you'll drop it. Let's go ahead and play this one in slow-mo and see how it's doing. Input, grab, perfect. Except, of course, it throws an error because we all know what happens when a nuclear reactor has an uncontained molecule that they tried to pull out of the reactor. The entire reactor explodes, and that's not acceptable. That is where we get the arrow instructions. The arrow instructions will again change the way the code line is moving. So now, for example, in, grab, scroll down. I don't think I need to tell you guys the obvious next step would be move it on right, and then back up again. Grab, move it some more. Can we speed this up? Sure we can, but let's let it play out. Okay. So far so good, right? Oh, and they actually, because it's a tutorial level, they're telling me where they want me to place the arrows. Okay. Let's ignore that for something. And I think I left an instruction down here, but whatever, doesn't matter. Next step, they want me to throw in the rotate, so we'll throw in the rotate, up, and the left. So now we have a cycle. What does the cycle do? Grabs a molecule, flips it. Oh! Notice what happened here. It crossed in alpha and created another molecule. But we're still holding our previous one, so that's not going to do. What we need to do is drop that molecule, and then hit the out gamma key. Now what out gamma means is the outputs are now currently on the output mat, the inputs are and the outputs on the output map match exactly what this is. You do not, note the location, need to be in the same orientation or the same position as the output. You just need to have the same molecule, ignoring chirality. So, oxygen, double oxygen, drop it, send it, 1 out of 10 complete. Every reactor has a minimum number of correct cycles you have to get through. Usually the easiest way to do this is to just create a working machine. And sure enough, our machine is a success! So, hooray hooray. Actually, I suspect that the volume is missing. Let me see if the sound effects are... Can you turn up? Because I'm barely hearing the sound effects. Anyway. Okay, so, back to the game. One thing I didn't make clear is that you do not have to make this so inefficient. Notice that this is not as efficient as it could be. I could easily remove this instruction, for example, save myself time on turning it. I could tighten this loop significantly and still get the same effect, except a whole lot faster than the previous machine. This is not relevant for beating the game, because all you're required to do is get it right. But you'll notice that it shows me what my previous best was and how much better my current method is. So it will give you that sense of optimization. And for those of you who have any programming background and know how important optimization is in a programming sense, well, let's just say it's a little bit of a nice added tool. And this, while not necessarily optimal, is a fairly strong implementation. I'll go back to that later if I feel like it. So, now that's the absolute basics, but the game is more interesting than that, so let's move on to the blue input-output. You have the red Waldo, you have the blue Waldo, and they act independently of each other. Well, mostly independently of each other. Let's start with the blue Waldo. In this mission, I'm asked to take elemental hydrogen and drop it off on the output. No, on this output. Okay, so far so good. In order to create the blue outputs, we just need to change the red outputs to blue. Is that what they're saying? Drop a red alpha input instruction and right click. Okay. Oh, there we go. We can switch to the blue layer. I feel like there's a faster way to do this. But in alpha, blue, in beta. Cat key. There we go, that's what it is. I can just do this. Okay, so in beta, then up. I'm just following their instructions blindly, but really it's the exact same thing that we did before. Out, gamma, but in blue, thank you very much. Down, and return to base. Oh, they're doing it differently, apparently. Oh, I forgot to grab the molecule. Yeah, that would have been helpful. And they're removing that sign, so they really do just want me to do the output omega. Okay, that should about do it, unless I... Yeah, that's too tight. Notice that I forgot the grab drop instruction, and that's why it failed, so we're just going to take care of that. Click. Grab drop, and then go. Okay, so far so good. Now, one thing I want to impress upon you is that there's no requirement that the blue be used on the lower half or the red on the upper half. This is totally valid. I could actually set it up if I felt like. Actually, I'm going to take a few moments to show you how much more I could have done with this same level. Let's throw in an identical looking loop over the top of the previous... Oh, it's going the wrong direction, actually. They're going to crash if they go opposite directions. So, oops, let's switch that up. Let's set this guy going left, that guy going right, past the grab drop, down, and throw in another right, left. Okay, so now I have these two loops. We'll put in an in beta here. Notice that by default they're asking alpha, but I do want it to be beta. Grab drop comes here, drops off here, and output omega on its own time. Okay, let's see if that works. That didn't work because they're too close together at the start, which is not really a problem. we'll just go ahead and make sure that there's a little bit more time between the two. And notice that I'm getting double the efficiency now because I'm using 2 loops. So it's going to finish twice as fast as my previous machine did. Yeah, that's a massive time saving. You don't have to go back and do that, and I've doubled the number of symbols used to get it twice as fast, but yeah, that's an example of an optimization. And just to demonstrate that the reds and blues can overlap each other. And now we get our first real problem. Given plutonium from one, or platinum from one, and gold from another, we have to output platinum up here and gold down here. How do we do it? Well, the most obvious thing is going to be to start off by, well, let's start off by figuring out one of them. Where exactly does the output come? It should come on this tile, I believe. Yes, good. Okay, so let's get ourselves some platinum. Let's grab the platinum, bring it down this way, out around this way, up this way, back out this way. Okay, so now we have our little loop. Oh, this is gold that we're gonna, sorry, not platinum. We'll drop the platinum here, we'll output it via output gamma here, and that should about do it. Yep, there we go. We managed to get one of the arm of the reaction working just fine. The other arm of the reaction, of course, is the platinum. And for platinum, let's actually just use the inside of the loop so that we avoid hitting the gold line as much as possible. If I'm not mistaken, we're gonna be required to cross over here in beta. Let's see where it's gonna come. Yeah, it's gonna be produced directly on the line we've created for the red. Okay. Let's do this then. Let's take the red out one step further, giving ourselves enough room to work with so that we don't actually have to cross the lines at all. Now, we could have done something more efficient, similar to the way that I did in the last puzzle, where I actually time it just right so that they never hit anyway. But I want to show you guys that, you know, there are the more pragmatic ways to play this too, rather than trying to optimize every single time. Trust me, the puzzles get hard on their own. And complete the loop. Oh, can't put a direction on the same as the start title? Oh yeah, I can. Perfect. So, we still have a problem that the in beta has to come before the grab drop on it. But now, execute the grab drop up here. I fire out the output here, the output omega, gamma, and then we should be good. Whoops, missed. There we go. Our reactor is efficient-ish, and it gets the job done. Now, obviously, it could be done a lot faster, but a solution is a solution, right? Right. Okay, next question. Introduction to bonding. Ah, yes, bondage, where the game gets entertaining. So, notice we have these plus-minus plates. They can be moved around, and they're a new item that is of use. I'm actually just going to throw together exactly like they're telling me to. Y'all understand right now what's going to happen here, right? It's going to move this way, it's going to grab this, and they're explaining here that you can turn a grab drop into a grab and or drop. Not necessarily just, it doesn't have to be double done each time. Okay, now we've got bonding plate. Oh, they're just asking me to do this. Okay, what next? Okay, so what's happening here is we've got fluorine and silver being produced. We're gonna go ahead, make fluorine, grab it, move it this way. We're gonna make silver, grab it, bring it this way. We're gonna make fluorine, grab it, pull it this way. The ultimate compound we need, however, isn't arginine plus fluorine, but is silver fluoride, or, you know, the two together. And that, my friends, is the real trick. In order to pull this off, we're going to need to bond the two molecules together. like so. Timing on this thing, we could do this by timing it all just perfectly. Make sure the wall does move in perfect sync so that the molecules happen to be at the right place at the right time. But that's going to be much more difficult than making use of a new instruction that they're giving us now called synchronization. Observe what happens when I put a red sync in and then try and run the puzzle. Red goes, but it stops the sync. It's waiting. Red will remain waiting until blue hits a sync of its own. So, well, that was a bad example. Let's actually just do what they're telling us. And actually, let's move the red sync into position too. Or not. Now I'm confused what they're trying for here. But, observe. It waits, it waits, it waits. Now you know the timing is going to be fine. Okay. Let's go ahead and drop off everything that needs to be dropped off on the platform. Oops. I got red and I want that to be. Oh, no, they want it to be a bond. Oh, that makes more sense. Okay, cool. So, when red crosses over here, we're going to use this instruction, the bonding instruction, to make it bind the molecule as one. Observe. Argene, fluorine, or silver and fluoride go. They wait for the sync to make sure that they're in close enough position, and then they bind it as a single molecule. Well, all that remains now is to drop off our completed molecule somewhere over here. And, oh god, this is why I don't like the tutorial levels, they make me go in there. Let's complete this loop first, so that's what they want me to do, and complete this loop second, the drop here, okay, an exclusive drop here, and an output. And that should about do it. We sync, we fire, we go. Sync, fire, go. And this allows me to have two loops of different sizes working in tandem, but really abusing the sync mechanic allows you so many options that will become more and more clear as we do more levels. Bottom line for now, though, is that puzzle is done, and now we're on to more training, apparently? Oh, right. As in real chemistry, there's a limit to how many bonds you can put between certain molecules. For example, hydrogen can only have one bonding spot because of its valence, and carbon can only go up to a triple bond, and triple bonds with as many as can happen, period. You can also remove bonds by using the bond minus instruction, which is, you'll notice that this has plus minus in the middle. That's because it can go either way. Anyway, brings us to our next puzzle, which is actually a carbon copy of the last one, except without instructions. Hydrogen, chloride, needs to make HCl, aka hydrochloric acid. Fun stuff. Do not burn your face off. Okay. In alpha, see what that does. Does exactly what it says it does. Good. Grab drop. And I leave them as grab drop because unless there's a specific reason I'm trying to avoid, then avoid not using them. Here I'm going to do something a little bit more fancy, which I'd like to show off to you guys. Thus far we've used blue to use in beta and red to use in alpha. But really that's not a requirement at all. So what I'm going to do is set it up so that in beta is created by the red loop as well. So watch what happens. In alpha, in beta, okay. Obviously there's a collision. But notice that they're in the perfect place for me to just bind them directly. In alpha, in beta, bind. Now I have HCl already. Well, that kind of solves my puzzle now, doesn't it? So now all I have to do is drop it off and close the loop. Drop, output, again not output gamma, nothing's there, output omega, and fire away. HCl, bind. HCl, bind. And I could do a double of this by putting blue overlay, but I don't want to. So, completing the loop. This is definitely faster than they had meant for me to do it. They wanted me to probably do the last puzzle, but I want to show you that there's more than one solution to the same problem. And you'll notice that I did this with like the minimum number of symbols anybody needs to do the puzzle, which is cool. If I had doubled my number of symbols up to average, I could have brought my time down to the very bottom, which again is cool. Is cool. Alright, and final level is to take F2 and make it F, and spit them out. Well, let's start with a pretty basic method. We'll produce some F2. So far, so good. And we'll split that F2. It's already on position, so let's immediately split it right up here. And split. Then we'll grab the second of the F2s. Drop it off. And send it out. And we're done. Right? Nope. Watch. We got one F2. We stick it out. But now we've overloaded our reactor because we never handled the second F2. Okay. Let's handle the second F2. Shouldn't be that complicated, right? We'll just use the blue guy. We'll send him out. We'll have him grab this guy. And this could potentially lead to a conflict if they're both on the same track. Okay, let's send him in the same direction as we sent the previous one, just to make sure that they don't actually accidentally bump each other. That's a bit too wide a loop for my taste. And there we go, that should do it. In fact, let's just tighten this loop a whole lot. There's no reason that it should be so horribly off. And send this guy up. There we go. Okay, new loop. Let's try that now. Ouch. Let's go ahead and give him a better start time. This should probably not work, but we'll see what happens. There we go. 1, 2. Better not sue. Oh, did I not drop it at all? My bad. Drop. Output gamma. Don't want to create all of these reactor failures. There we go. And the reactor is complete. Alright, let me go ahead and check. It looks like I'm doing good for time. That was the first set of puzzles, the first world, and you'll notice they have several planets, worlds, whatever you want to call them. I think I'll do another set of 5, and then move on. Well, depends how long it takes. And, yeah, so let's do a few more, and then we'll call it quits. Here we're given basic oxygen, and we need to make double bonded oxygen, which is elemental oxygen. Okay, not a problem. Let's start off by getting me some oxygen. And dropping it off here. No, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Okay, here's an idea. We start off by getting oxygen. Then we grab that oxygen, move it down, and right here I would ideally love to do an in alpha as well as a bond. But I can't do all of that at the same time. Okay, what I can do is give up on doing it all super duper fast. That's the first one. And once I have it grabbed, I'll create the second one. Then we'll move this way, and we'll bond it. So what's going to happen is, it's going to come this way, create oxygen, grab it, pull in another oxygen, come this way, bind them, come this way, bind them again. Actually, let's just do this to make it more visually clear what I'm doing. Bind them again, since it's now moving both of them. And then close the loop. So we'll drop it here and output it here. And that should do the trick. Oxygen, second oxygen, bind, double bond, drop, output. Ta-da! Let's go ahead and give it some speed. Visura! Visura! There we go. 10 out of 10 complete. Not the fastest, not the least, but, you know, fairly efficient. Next. On. Given elemental nitrogen, produce triple bonded nitrogen. Now we can't use the same system I used before because I don't have just the 2 binders I would need. But it really shouldn't be that much more complicated. Let's start off with in alpha and grab the nitrogen with me so far. Actually, we can definitely get the two nitrogens off the platform with the exact same method I previously used. So this should give me double nitrogen being single N2 being carried with just one bond. Okay. As it's coming this way, try this. I want it to come here. Drop it. Bind it. Bind it again to make it a triple bond. Make this a grab drop so it actually grabs it. And now I have the triple bonded version that will get dropped off here. Now put it here. So you see, the logic that this game forces you to think in is like this procedure is... Oh! Screwed it up. This needs to go deeper. Down here. Actually, you know what? Just do that. That should solve the problem just as well. Triple bond. Ta-da! This game forces you to think in terms of like these procedures. Start with A, then move to B and C, and track the progress of it, and then figure out how to solve the puzzle based on that. And I really do enjoy that kind of logic. Carbon and oxygen, double bonded. Carbon monoxide needs to be split into the carbon and the oxygen components by splitting both bonds. Okay, so far so good. Let's go ahead and produce some carbon monoxide. Right? And once it's produced... Actually, once it's produced... I just had a brilliant idea. I could just destroy the bonds right here as it comes out. I don't have to move it around at all to get that to happen. Let's try this. Yep! I got the carbon and I got the oxygen separated already. Now all I need to do is figure out my disposal system, and I think what I'm going to do is use the sync command to make sure it doesn't have a collision. But basically, this is how I'm going to get the carbon down. I move it out, I grab it, drop it here, and output it here. But I want it to wait. Let's do a sync here. Once I know that the red is safely out of the way. So here's what's going to happen. The machine will start and immediately blue will wait. Then red will come. Red will produce the carbon monoxide, break it apart, grab carbon, and wait. This will tell, and come here. This will signal it to go this way while blue comes this way. And that should be more than enough margin for red to get its output out, produce the next molecule, and then start waiting again. Meanwhile, blue will go the long way, drop its molecule here, spit it out here, and that should do the trick. Break it down. Oh, haha, I forgot to put a grab. You'll notice that blue and red instructions can obviously be on the same square since they're ordering separate Waldos. It's green, that's blue. And the sync makes sure that, despite the fact that they're different lengths, they never actually conflict with each other. And so there we go. Mission complete. Come on, give me the next one. Ooh, pipelines. This is where the fact that you're doing SpaceChem actually starts to really show and be more entertaining. What I have here is an overworld view of, well, I guess in this level they're not giving me reactors, so it's just the overworld view. What I can do is create these massive pipelines, which have their own rules for creation involving when they can and cannot cross each other. Like, I think, yeah, these pipes are not actually moving through each other at all, so let's go ahead and just reset the pipe, because that made it more complicated to get rid of things like. And what the pipeline does is exactly what you think it does. It the way that factories have ins and outs in previous runs, well, this is the factory, and it produces benzene. And I'm going to go ahead and pipeline that benzene directly into this storage facility, which requires an amount of benzene, cargo freighter. And here I have acetonitrite, so let's go ahead and pipeline that to this factory, which needs acetonitrite, and run it. And you'll notice you can see the molecules fully constructed being sent in and out until you fill up the barrels. Okay, so far so good. What makes it interesting is when you get a reactor in the mix. Recall that in previous puzzles they told me what my ins and outs were. That's not how it works now. Now, I determine the ins and outs by pipelining these substances into my factory. So in this particular puzzle, for example, I'm going to pipeline the hydrogen and the chloride into the factory, and sure enough, that's what I'm getting in. Okay, so far so good. What I need to produce for the storage for the cargo freighter is HCl, or acid, presumably to go and put in the slime pits to put on unwary travelers. There's my output pipeline. In fact, let's go ahead and use the southern pipeline because it's closer. And sure enough, that's the output that is now demanded. And when I create this machine, well, let me go ahead and create it and you can see what happens. In alpha, goes ahead and now's the where you're grateful that they spent so long teaching you how to make these things, otherwise you wouldn't know what to do. In alpha goes here. Let's do this on the one loop method. So in beta, we have the chloride waiting for us here. And when it gets to about here, we're gonna need to bond it. So here, and then drop and send. Alright. And actually, just for giggles, let me show you how this game's actually handling it by putting it on output gamma. So you can see what happens. So this is technically the wrong solution, right? Let's go ahead and exit the factory and... oh, stop. I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of a pipeline here. It shows me the inside of the factory. It shows me how my hydrogen chloride loop is binding, going up just like it should, and then spitting it out from here. But now look, it comes out and has nowhere to go because there's no receiver. Further, you'll notice that as the machine runs, there is a buildup. The rate at which I receive these reactants is higher than the rate at which my machine is demanding the reactants, so they're building up ever so slightly. Now, backing up to the storage tank isn't such a big deal, but when this pipeline gets all the way backed up, let's go ahead and speed it up a little bit to show you faster. So it's almost completely used up, right? Watch what's going to happen when I try and put out the next HCl, which there is no more spare pipeline. It's going to go ahead, it's going to ask it to output, it's going to get stuck because there's nowhere to put it. So that right there is part of what makes this mode so much more, well, these types of puzzles with the reactors so much more tricky. You have to go ahead and coordinate all these things. Of course, in my case, I've intentionally screwed it up, so let's go ahead and set it right now, shall we? Out gamma. The grab drop has to actually go there, my bad. Grab drop, out gamma. And did you notice how there was a pause there? Actually, let me go ahead and make it clear. Notice how there's a pause while it's waiting for its first input? That's because it hadn't arrived from the pipeline yet. Okay, there we go. So the system works. Our reactor is obviously functioning just fine. And we can see that from the overview just fine, and it's spitting it out into the loading truck. Let's go ahead and speed it up. And even though I'm getting an overflow here, that doesn't matter because overflowing into the storage tank is no big deal. If there had, however, been another factory that needed me to hurry up, I could ruin a different reaction. Ta-da! Alright. That leads us to a big production level, which is awesome. Here, you'll notice that I'm allowed 2 reactors, so let's throw out the 2 reactors right away, just so now I have everything on the screen. I need to produce formaldehyde, carbon with 2 hydrogens and a double bonded oxygen. I have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And this is part of why SpaceChem is such a fun game for me. These are the really tougher puzzles. Because not only do I have to figure out how I'm going to make it on the reactor level, or sorry, on the reaction level, I also have to figure out which inputs and outputs I want to run. For example, I could go ahead and just pipe carbon oxygen together in this factory and have it come out as carbon dioxide. That would be very straightforward. And once that's done, I could pipe this line in and just produce straight elemental hydrogen and try and add the hydrogens on effectively to my carbon dioxide. I think that actually might be a fairly good way to do it. Because there's no way that I can get hydrogen at a higher rate. Actually, if I put this reaction first, that gives hydrogen more time to build up a surplus. And since it's going to be demanded at twice the rate, I'm going to build a very big tube for hydrogen here, so that it has a capacitance, as it were. There's going to be a store of hydrogen waiting to go into the factory by the time my CO2 is built. And then from there, we just output that to the end game, and that should hopefully accomplish our mission. Why can't I move that? That should accomplish our mission. Alright, so let's try it out now. Notice that if this is labeled as an open reactor, and if I click to it, it'll show me what happens in that open reactor that I'm waiting for. It isn't telling me what the input should be. I can, however, say, here's what the output is. I can create my own notes, as it were, and be like, CO with a double bond. You know, and now that will populate. That obviously is not going to be enforced by the game in any way. Let's go ahead and go in alpha on the oxygen, why not? And then grab the output, and when it comes down here, flip it around. And actually, you know what? Just so that I'm consistent with the location I put it on, I'm going to go ahead and edit my notes and move it on over. Alright, and then we'll drop it here and out. See if my machine works. What have I forgot? Oh, that's right, I forgot the entire in beta thing. In beta, why not? Let's just do it right away. It's going to be waiting for me over here. Set the binding strips up. It's actually a neat trick. We'll go ahead and bind once when it hits this one, and bind once more when it hits this one. So that should do the trick. Bind, double bind. Perfect. Producing it on the fly. Okay, pause here. Judging by the rate and the time it took us to get 4 CO2s, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hydrogen set up. So it looks like, at least initially, the reactants will be produced at the correct rate to make this somewhat efficient. Let's go ahead and start the next reaction, and you'll notice that the same location that I designated as my output on the previous pad is the location that eventually will be the input here. Yep, exact same location. What I need to do is apply elemental hydrogen to this thing. How am I going to do that? That's the rough end. Alright, let's go this way. Input, grab. So now what's going to happen is we're going to grab it, and it's going to come up this way, holding it by the oxygen itself. Okay. We're going to have oxygen, carbon here, and then here, with hydrogen in here, so let's go ahead and get our first bind of hydrogen done right away by doing in alpha, and bind as it crosses the platform. Cha-ching, that's 1. If we're holding it by the oxygen, this should be completely safe. We're now going to have hydrogen sticking out the right, so when we come here, oh, that's perfect. We'll do another in alpha up here, and we're going to have an oxygen, carbon, hydrogen. So we'll just bind another one here. Like so. And unless I've overlooked something, that should complete the molecule. So, you know, drop out, and try this now. Notice that I'm waiting on the delay to wait till the first reactant of carbon dioxide is produced. There it is. I should say carbon monoxide. And something went wrong and I wasn't paying attention, so I didn't see what, so let's try that again in slow motion. I must have misread the molecule. Okay, we got the oxygen in alpha. It bonded at the wrong time. It bonded the oxygen to the hydrogen, not the carbon to the hydrogen. Let's put the bond up here, and that should fix it. One, I'm in alphaing while I'm on top of the carbon. That obviously isn't going to work. Okay, this would have been really slick, but it's not working. So let's go ahead and move the in alpha and figure out what I'm going to do. I want to actually see it because that will help me think. Okay, this is our situation. In alpha is produced exactly at the same time as I would have wanted to bind. What I can do is come around this way, turn the molecule, and then bind it lower. So that's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and, you know, just redo part of the loop. And turn the molecule one turn to the side, so that we're going to have carbon, oxygen, hydrogen coming this way. We do our bind when it's on the correct spot, except we're holding it by the oxygen, aren't we? So the bind will have to be done here when the carbon is sticking out. Yeah, okay, good. Then execute the grab drop, the out, and that should do it. Not terribly efficient, but it should in fact get it done. I went way too fast to see what was wrong, so let's figure out what was wrong. Okay, so we get the first bond correctly. We get the second bond correctly, so things are going good now. Grab drop is in. It's off the pad. It's on the interspace and off the pad, so the output is not accepted. Thank God, I thought it was a serious problem. We'll just make sure that it's well centered this time. And that should solve our problem. At least at the reactor level. Okay, and there we go. We're now producing formaldehyde. And again, this is not the most efficient solution. I didn't even use the red or blue band on the opposite reactors to try and speed things up. That's me. Let's go ahead and put it in high speed. And that's it. That's us having made a formaldehyde producing factory. Okay, so that's the first two planets complete. And I think that'll about do it for now. Please like or subscribe or comment or whatever you want to do on the video, and if there's something specific you'd rather see me doing or something else you'd rather see me explaining, let me know. The game is SpaceChem. The demo is free and available on Steam. The game costs, I don't remember how much, I think it's less than $10 though. So, you know, if this seems like the thing for you, totally try it out. And while the puzzles you've seen so far are fairly straightforward and simple, just to give you an example of how complex they can be, take a look at Mustachium 608, a compound produced entirely out of Australium, involving double bonds in weird orientations with occasional single bonds in these massive, massive contractions. So, you know, don't be fooled by the fact that I've only done the first two worlds. The game does start out nice and straightforward and simple, but let's go ahead and switch to my other profile. Some of the more complicated machines are complicated, like that, or like this. Anyway, I look forward to doing this again sometime, but that's all the time I've got, so thank you all for watching. I will see you guys next time.
Thank you all for watching. I will see you guys next time.